we are talking about tic disorders and puberty. This has been a really hot topic. I've had a lot of people ask this question about tic disorders and puberty. What you read on the internet may not be completely true. And that is the case for, I think, everything. What you read on the internet is not all of the information that is out there. So we know that puberty causes significant changes in our children. Sometimes they are I have two Mr. Attitude, or maybe they're Mrs. Need an attitude adjustment. So we know that puberty causes significant changes to our kids. But what you're reading on the internet is that tics will increase in puberty. And I'm here to bust that myth for you guys today. That is actually not something that's incredibly true. So let's talk about why that's not the case. So here we go. When our kids are experiencing those hormonal changes during puberty, the body experiences an increase in hormones like testosterone and estrogen. And that can influence the severity of tics. But there's actually a study that shows that testosterone levels in boys with tic disorders actually positively correlate with their tic severity, meaning it helps to reduce the tics. And we're going to talk about why estrogen and testosterone should actually be helping, not hurting. But we're going to talk about the factors that may be the real issue for your child. When you go through puberty, you also experience a lot of stress and anxiety, right? Remember, like feeling so stressed and anxious. Puberty is a time of increased stress and anxiety due to many factors. Physical, we're doubling in height and weight and size, we're growing rapidly. Social issues, emotional changes that occur during this period of time. Stress and anxiety are actually known to worsen tics. So puberty-related stressors could exacerbate tic symptoms. So for many of us, we're reading on the internet that it may get worse during puberty and we're thinking it's hormones. But what I'm going to tell you, and what I tell you over and over, is that it is these hidden stressors. Things like stress and anxiety. But what are some of those hidden stressors? I've talked about them before. Environmental factors, physical factors, emotional factors, those biological factors. So we have all of these factors that are impacting our bodies as we continue to grow. So we also see changes in brain development during puberty. The brain undergoes significant changes during puberty, including changes in areas that control movement and behavior. So we know that these kinds of things can impact tic severity. But what we know is that tics are not purely neurological. When we're looking at tic disorders, we're looking at the fact that our gut and our brain are connected. For every 10 signals your brain sends, or your gut sends to your brain sends one signal to your gut. So your gut and your brain have this connection. Your immune system and your nervous system impact each other. So we have to look at all of these other factors that are impacting our child. We also have to look at medications. You've heard me talk about the Cincinnati Children's Hospital study. Medications for tics do not cure tics. They are, one, prescribed off-label. Two, they rarely reduce symptoms more than 50%, right? You've heard me talk about this study. But how does puberty impact how those medications work? Let's talk about that. So some medications used to treat tic disorders may be impacted during hormonal changes because some medications work at blocking dopamine, and those may be less effective during puberty when the brain produces higher levels of this neurotransmitter. Some of you might have been on a medication and you might have been thinking, well, it's kind of working. It's working well-ish. Maybe it's reduced symptoms a little bit. And then your kid goes through puberty and you're like, holy smokes, why isn't this working anymore? That's one factor. Another factor is that if you don't get to the root of what's going on, you will need more and more medication or changes in medication to put a Band-Aid on whatever that symptom is, because you're not getting to the root. You're not looking at what is really going on under the hood. So we talked about the fact that we know there's information that shows testosterone actually impacts boys' tics in a positive way. There's not a lot of studies on that as far as women, but we know that estrogen and testosterone are anti-inflammatory. So we're going to dig into that. Testosterone and estrogen are hormones that play a variety of roles in the human body, including, here we go, regulating inflammation. Both testosterone and estrogen have been shown to have anti-inflammatory effects, meaning they can help reduce inflammation in the body. Here's what you have to know. When it comes to puberty, girls are going through puberty much sooner. So some of them starting at about 8 years old. Boys, actually much later. Boys are going through puberty at a later stage in their life where they're getting testosterone 15, 16 years old. So it's not, with boys, it's not as soon as you think it is. If you're having a lot of attitude problems and they're 10, it's most likely from inflammation. So testosterone and estrogen have anti-inflammatory effects. So one way that testosterone and estrogen are anti-inflammatory is by inhibiting the production of pro-inflammatory molecules like cytokines and chemokines. What you have to know about cytokines and chemokines, they're important molecules in your body for your immune system. If you have a lot of inflammation, those cytokines are going to be higher in the evening. If your kids are coming home and you're seeing a lot of tics, it is one of the reasons could possibly be because they have a lot of inflammation and those cytokines, that immune response is elevated in the evening. We know that these molecules are produced by the immune system in response to things like infection and injury, and they can cause inflammation and tissue damage. Testosterone and estrogen can block the production of those molecules, which helps to reduce inflammation. You've heard me talk about the study about immune system dysregulation. Immune system dysregulation is a lot of inflammation in the body, and there are studies that show tic disorders and Tourette's and related disorders like tic disorders have a lot to do with dysregulated immune systems, inflammation, okay? So when we're thinking about this, we're thinking about puberty and going through those pubescent changes, getting estrogen and testosterone and thinking that is the cause of our children's tics. When in reality, we're missing the bigger picture because we're not looking at what's going on under the hood. So another way that testosterone and estrogen are anti-inflammatory is by promoting the production of anti-inflammatory molecules such as interleukin-10, it's known as IL-10, and transforming growth beta factor, known as TGF-beta. These cytokines help to reduce inflammation by suppressing the activity of pro-inflammatory molecules. Testosterone and estrogen can stimulate the production of these anti-inflammatory cytokines, which can help dampen the inflammatory process. So that's two ways. Let's go for number 3. In addition, testosterone and estrogen can directly impact the function of immune cells such as macrophages and T cells, which are involved in that inflammatory response. Testosterone and estrogen can alter the activity of these cells in a way that reduces inflammation. So overall, testosterone and estrogen have anti-inflammatory effects that help to regulate the body's immune response and reduce inflammation. If your child is experiencing tics and they're going through puberty and you're seeing an increase, you have to look at what's going on under the hood. We are going to talk about toxic body burden. Why is this impactful? So we talked about stressors, going through puberty and having these stressors. But what are some of these stressors? Environmental, biological, physical, mental. We have these stressors going on in our body. It's not just my boss is a jerk or there's a bully at school or I'm getting estrogen or testosterone. That's not it. We have to look at all of these stressors and what's going on in the body. So let's talk about total toxic burden. So toxic body burden refers to the accumulations of toxins in the body over time. These toxins can come from a variety of sources. So when you hear toxins, you're thinking things like bleach, Febreze, gasoline, smoking. These are the toxins you're thinking about, but there's so many toxins. When we talk about total toxic burden, it's the burden on your body. So there is a variety of sources where we can accumulate these. So exposure to pollutants, so, pesticides, herbicides in the air, water, and soil, as well as through the foods that we're eating. But you also create your own toxins. Yes, you do. They are called endotoxins. So if you have things like an underlying parasite infection overgrowth, maybe you have a fungal overgrowth, maybe you have mycotoxin toxicity, which is from mold in your body creates endotoxins. It creates its own toxins in response to what is going on in your body. There's those waste byproducts produced by, things like candida. So you have to understand that when I'm looking at toxins, I'm not just looking at, there's glyphosate sprayed on your food. I'm looking at what is that total toxic burden on your body? What are those toxins that are accumulated in your body? Are they environmental toxins? Are they heavy metals? The foods that you're eating, you can be sensitive to them. You can have food sensitivities. You can have food allergies. You can have leaky gut. Your gut and your brain are connected. So we have to look at what this whole entire total toxic burden impact is on your child's body. So that toxins that accumulate over time can interfere with normal functioning of your body systems, your nervous system, your immune system. It can lead to a high range of health issues. And that toxic body burden is really influenced by a variety of factors. It can be influenced by genetics. Maybe you're not a good detoxifier based on your genetics. That's something we test. We're going to look at that. We're going to look at your genes. How well do you detoxify, right? Your lifestyle choices. What are you eating? How are you sleeping? How are you moving? Did your kid come home from school, sit on their butt and play video games all afternoon? That can be stressful. You are meant to be out moving around. You aren't meant to sit on your butt all day. We can also look at, where you are exposed to toxins. Where do you live in the world? Do you live in a big city? Do you live in rural America? Do you drink your water from a well? Do you drink your water from, your city water? So we have to look at all of these things that impact your total toxic burden. Do you live in the valley where they spray a whole lot of herbicides and pesticides? What's happening in your environment? And then we have to talk about, yes, there's ways to reduce the toxic burden in your body, because we have to support those detoxification pathways. And we can eat a healthy diet. We can drink plenty of water. We can get regular exercise. We can avoid those harmful chemicals whenever possible. We can bag them all up and throw them all away and send them to the city dump. We can take certain supplements to help with our detoxification. But here's what you have to know. If you are on the internet and you start researching and you're like, oh, we got to do a heavy metal detoxification. One, you want to know, does your child really have heavy metals? Does your child really have environmental toxins? What are those underlying issues? But it actually has to be done in certain steps. If you just jump into a detoxification protocol and you have not done the steps to prep the body to detoxify, you're going to see an increase in symptoms. So you have to understand that the internet has lots of good information, but it may not always be right, and it may not always lay out that step, that process that you need to go through to get you back on track. So overall, yeah, puberty can impact tic disorders in a variety of ways. How I see it is it's actually more of a positive thing and less of a negative thing. If you are seeing those negative impacts of puberty, increasing tic disorders, you need to look deeper. You need to look at what is going on under the hood. You need to test, not guess. So this is where my clients are really looking at what's going on. Your check engine light in your car comes on, you take it to the mechanic. They put it on their diagnostic tools and they tell you what's wrong with it. But with our kids, we're just guessing and we're just like, hey, just ignore it. They'll grow out of it, maybe. To me, that is not acceptable. We want to know what's going on under the hood. This is why over the last 6 years, I've created my own proprietary process. When my clients work with me, we're going to look at over 936 biomarkers. And actually, there's been some changes to the testing, so it's over 1,000 biomarkers at this point. We have to look at what's going on under the hood because data is knowledge and knowledge is power. We have to know what's going on in our child's body so that we can then go through the steps that we need to take. We need to connect the dots. What's happening on the paper, what's happening with the results, but how does that connect to your child and their health history and what's going on in their body? And then how do we create those long-term and short-term goals? We have a 3-step process that we go through with every single client. So that being said, we know that yes, puberty can impact your tics, but they should be impacting them in a positive way, not in a negative way. If you are seeing negative influence during puberty, you need to look at what's going on under the hood. What is really happening with your child? So I hope that was really helpful for you guys this morning. It gave you some more information on tics and puberty.